If you have not yet finished your Amidah, please continue at your own pace. Alan's going to lead us in the repetition, which starts on page 223, and then we'll continue with him, we'll join with him for the Kedusha on page 225.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Avotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzhak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Tzara Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor VaNorah Eloyon Gomer Chasadim Tovim V'Konei HaKol V'Zocher Chasdei Avot U'Mevi'u Livnei B'naihem L'man Shmo V'Yavah Melech Ozer V'Gid Moshiach Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham V'Gid Tzara אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחויתו קרב להושיע, ברית הטל, לכלכל חיים וחסד, לחסד ורחמים רבים, שמח נופלים והופך עולים מציר אסורים, וקיים אותו ישנה עבר, ויחבר חבר גבורה ומיתו מלאך, מלך מביא נוחם מצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות ביתים, ברוך אתה אדוני, לחיי הביתים. מקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מורם, גדול היה נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר. קדוש, 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 עדי צבאו, מלך הארץ כבודו, למתן ברוך יומך. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו, דברי קודשך כתוב לאמור. ימלוך אדוני לעולם, מלך ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור אדוני גודלך, נצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש. וקדשך אלוהינו. גדול מושלם ועד, כי אומר גדול וגדול אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, הלל הקדוש. אתה חדשים לך, מיתן חסדך בארץ, תפארת גדולה. חסד ישועה, יום מנוחה, קדשה לך נתת, אברהם יגל, יצחק ירדן, יעקב בניו, ינוחו בו. מנוחת אהבה ונדבה, מנוחת אמת ואמונה, מנוחת שלום ושלווה והשקט בבטח, מנוחה שלמה שתרצת בה, יכירו בניך, וידעו כי נבחרים מנוחתם, ועל מנוחתם יקישו את שמך, אלוהינו לאבותינו, צבי מנוחתנו, קדשנו מצוותיך. אלוהינו בתורתך, צווינו בטובך, ושמחנו בישועתך, ותאר ליבנו לעבדך באמת, והנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו, ביום רצון שבת קודשך, אנו ובא ישראל מקדשי שמך, ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השבת. וצא אדוני אלוהינו, למחסל תפילתה, והשבת אדוני בביתך, ותפילת רבה תקבל רצון, ותהי רצון תגיד ודאי ישראל עמך, ותחזינה עלינו, ושובך לציון ברחמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, המחזיר שכינתו לציון. הטוב גילוך לרחמך, וכן גילותם לחסדיך, מעולם מגיבינו לך. ועל כולם יתברך בגמם שמך מלכנו, תמיד לעולם ועד. בכל יודוך סלע, ויעלות שמך באמת, היושבתנו רצותנו סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני, הטוב שמך לחנה להודות. שלום רב ישראל עמך, רק לא ישתדל תשים לעולם. כתוב מלך אדון לכל השלום, וטוב בעיניך. לברך לו חס ובכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני, אברך את עמו ישראל בשלום. צדקת צדק לעולם, Mitzvotcha emet, V'tzidkatcha Elohim, Ad Marom Asher Tzidkah Gedolot, Elohim Yichavacha, Tzidkatcha Gare'er, Yipatecha Tehom Rabba, Adam Ve'ema, Toshia Adonai.
Kenny Shalem. Shalom Imam, Yaseh Shalom. Amen. Amen.
V'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shamei dekudesha, ve'elamin kol, birchata, v'shirata, tushbechata, v'nechanata, damiran, ve'alah, v'yimru. Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'kol Yisrael, v'yimru. Amen. Shalom v'rav, v'uya, shalom. Aleinu ve'kol Yisrael, v'yimru. Amen.
As we go up to Alan to Mark for reading Torah, feel free to get some food, and we'll start the learning. We went quickly through davening, so we'll start the learning in like 12-ish minutes. You can relax and eat, and then we'll start closer to 8.
Exactly.
We just went very, very fast. For whatever reason. Yeah, it was a short, but we're reading. I was, yeah, until 2010. When did you graduate? Okay, so I got there after you graduated.
Yeah, I was there when there was like the first music school.
Oh.
There was a crash.
Oh, the plane crash.
Yeah.
That was right before I got there, summer before I got there, no, spring before I got
I
there.
literally remember being in a hill in March and I started up with a
Wow.
conversation.
Wow. Yeah, it was a big conversation on campus right before I got there, but then it was made, because at that time it was just the Indiana School of Music, not the Jacobs School of Music.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, so I got there right as that
Yeah.
happened, yeah.
Yeah, one of my disappointments was never actually going to any of the concerts.
Concerts?
It would give us
I went to enough for all of us.
It was like number 2 in each.
Yeah. I'll be right back, I'm just gonna get my sheets.
Whitefish? Oh, boy.
Oh, lunch was good. I had straight dessert and also I was gonna make guacamole. Cause I was at the, I was sitting downstairs. I went to the bar mitzvah, right? They used the bar mitzvah over there. Big thing of guacamole. Big, two giant bags, for one they didn't finish the guacamole. It was that much. 6 different types of dessert, cookies
He did like this.
See, I wasn't there to.
I know them before they were married, let alone 15 years. So I saw about 100. I'm giving everybody. I'm trying to do a phone with the car.
No, it's a total like 2 bar mitzvahs.
Yeah,
It just felt like my cousin's son and my sister's daughter. Oh, and my brother's twins. Those are the 3. One was last year. No, none of these were in. One of these was in Boston. One of these was in New York, and one of these was in. No, one of them was my cousin's son. That one was very cool. Felt very cool. I'm forgetting where it was. It was somewhere north of Detroit. In Canada.
You big too? You're not getting 15?
Just gonna get more coffee.
What, you ate big lunch too?
Yeah.
I'm gonna cook water.
Oh, these teas are fine. The lemon ginger. See, I'm drinking some green tea right now. Is it not hot? Is it not water? Is it like coffee? I'm glad. Well, I don't want to go near it because I hate the smell of coffee. I hate every aspect of coffee. I personally think coffee shouldn't exist, but I don't want to take my values on other people.
I like bitter water, so I mean, that's my coffee.
I just can't take the taste or.
I'm not a fan of coffee. I like it. Like mixed with other
Well, it's different.
Cerberus. Cerberus? Cerberus. Cerberus, yes. I mean, Cerberus is a very big one. Also, it's named after the dog from Greek mythology. For now.
Okay.
They sold, they're down to like 30% value.
Oh, the extremities.
Yeah. Right. We'll just have to sell them. I had some more on earlier, it's fine. So this is white people standing. Wow, they're pulling out of us.
Yeah.
But it's also the one that's making like a ton of noise.
This goes to the family, right? No? That's why these two are growing up.
Diane. Thank God. It took a long nap.
I also did, I took 2 hours, I never do.
There were, apparently there were
But
writers,
this
so.
morning was
writing,
a
this
war
is not just that you can't buy a small, it's just right.
This morning's service.
So they seemed twice 3 times and they couldn't.
That's good.
It happens.
I think we know that you saw probably.
Or, I don't know how they were gonna
But I'm also
procure the capital, but it was, they just
I
can't.
was like.
I have no idea. I mean, they didn't have to show, they could have been putting it on.
a lot of people are just paying things up front because of interest
Yeah,
rates.
I understand.
But these Cambridge books are based in LA. Save money.
Only the English
Sounds good to you?
Yeah.
That's great, it's, for me, it's like exactly the
That's how
opposite, I'm like, nope, thank you very much.
It's above 5 years.
Growers in California.
But they're occupied overseas, so their interest rates are wherever they are usually higher than here. So if they buy something here, it's like it's like making the difference.
Our unionized, which is one of the largest.
That stuff in our 20s.
Yeah.
No, so hopefully, but the problem is price is high. And if they totally work hard.
I'm sure they'd be.
Yeah, I don't know how they,
and I
how they would help
I
you.
just- I can't do
No, I mean, have to.
Keep the
Yeah.
business that will take away.
That's why, that's why there's so little.
Even like
inventory.
food services when they ask us.
I mean, yes, there are a few
I
people
feel like
who-
most of
You
these
know what?
is I like, if I close my eyes, I'll close my eyes, no
But there
problem.
are much fewer.
But I'm like, oh, what groceries do I need on Sunday, you know, like I just,
If there was a
I
rush to
don't,
buy
I
during the
don't stay on
pandemic.
task.
Exactly, that is the biggest problem. You can't like transfer your interest rates to your next house.
Yeah.
But you still can get interest rates that are lower.
Right.
Oh, and now you'll.
Well, when I do yoga.
Yeah, exactly.
That I can do, yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, like, that's the
It's really crazy, it's like commercial market actually, because they're also, they're basically all screwed over, because simultaneously, and if you wanna get a real deal, buy an office building.
like my brain
They're really going to
can't.
the
It goes down and I'm not really like, you can't relax.
They want it to be, they were coming up to a hard spot too, because everyone refinanced when the pandemic started, because people thought they were really screwed over, because no one was going to be working during the pandemic, which was true. But they didn't see that no one would be coming back to work after the pandemic. Yeah, but they only, it's only refinance, commercial loans are different, they don't like have a fixed rate, only fixed rate for maybe 4 years, and then they have to, then they're adjustable. So the problem is, now.
It will not be what I do for
Right,
mine.
right, it's even, and they have no income, so they won't be able to go right now, they won't even be able to get a new level.
But who's cares?
Oh, because no one
Much
can.
like this guy is,
Yeah, so there's no income, people are all the new leases are
Like, I'm having a rough day.
They're not getting anything to eat.
he gave them.
But if I had enough situations, like, everybody should
So eating is a big.
Hopefully, so that's the idea, but the problem with office buildings is they have like large internal spaces, which are not really useful for
That's the
living.
The times that I've been able.
So you have like a room without a window, or lots of rooms without
I
a
was the
window.
only one who thought that.
And because
I
of
used to
our
go
laws,
to this studio.
But anyway, that's.
It makes me feel better that they're working there rather than.
Walk.
don't live that way, you get a high rise.
I know. For other reasons.
For some tradespeople, use that where you have a window inside the house, but it's facing toward the, where the window is facing inside the house.
It's great, because like when we knew her, we felt like, you know, we were like connected to her.
I've seen like rooms, like you have to, I don't know what bedrooms.
Oh, yeah.
You have to have a window too, so they put a tunnel and make the windows to the sky.
My mom was doing the right moves, the like, but it was nuts, it was
I
nuts.
don't know how you escape from that kind of window, but
Yeah.
people will do any trick.
But you know what I would do?
Well, I usually think that the code is set up this way so that some people can get away with it. Usually people who can't, don't care if they're being like honest, because they're.
I have a trainer who I work with for my house.
I didn't tell you.
It's like bigger goals.
But anyway, so that's my latest piece of unsolicited business advice.
It was a great school in North, I went to, when I went there.
Somebody keep telling me
And
that you should.
then
attorney, I
the
don't
two
know
that I
what
used to
to
go
do
to
with it.
after.
They did put two
is
for
on Fairfax third.
so they must have some material.
Right, so there must be some way they could do something.
There's
but-
two mushrooms. One is the not even one that we're organizing, the other one is the mushrooms. We're gonna do a bi-monthly mushroom statewide struggles.
Yeah.
Maybe I should get some billboards there, so those will go down.
So they make them up, they like.
And Rebecca used to.
Will you do that?
Yeah, so not LA does have like display paper over all the buildings that could be, all the commercial buildings that can't be converted to
I would go,
real estate.
as opposed to like, getting doors and then over on the boat.
So that's,
Just like at home, I'm home.
now they hired the brand, but that's expensive relative to the income from property, vacant properties. Yeah, they documented as like a list of everything. Yeah.
That's not enough.
Yeah, no, I totally
Yeah, like that, like the Ritz-Carlton, does have like all the tallest buildings. Most of that was residential. Oh, no, it's like all over town. It's like older buildings, stuff like that. So it's a lot of areas. It's not just downtown.
It's like, no, I know, I did, yeah,
I don't think they want anything, that's all residential, right? But there are like some places.
Great, we just went through.
Yeah, there are some like close to this area, I know they're.
All right, hello, everyone. So we dove in very quickly. And I don't know that I have 25 minutes of material on this piece of paper, but hopefully you'll all participate enough that you'll have tons of questions and I'll be completely wrong and be rushing through to get us to the
You're talking
end.
to the wrong group, we'll fill
So-
2 hours.
No, I'm going to in a second. So, and hello to everybody on Zoom and live stream. If you have the, what's it called? Email bulletin from the show, it has the source sheet hopefully, linked there. If you don't, I'm gonna tell you the sources, I'm also gonna read them out loud, so, don't worry that you're missing out if you don't have the source sheet. So, one thing that I noticed when looking at this parsha, it's Parshat Shlach Lecha, or some people say it's Parshat Shlach, some people say, isn't it Shlach Lecha? Sure, it's the one that comes after Bahalecha. And this is, what? Easy for me to say, yeah. I made fun of, lovingly, the B'nai Mitzvah boys today because they could not say Behalotcha. And so I had to kind of get them through it. They read their Torah beautifully, but it is a very hard parsha to say. Anyway, so Shlach Lecha is a little bit easier. But there are two things that happen in this parsha that are probably known to you, but I had never put them together as potentially playing one into the other. So what's the first thing that happens in this parsha that people know about?
Sending the spies.
Yeah, sending the spies. Right, and what's the second thing? Okay, if you don't know. Tzitzi. It's where we get tzitzit.
Oh, yes.
And so this idea of the spies being sent in to see the land and then wearing garments that are supposed to be reminders visually for us of the mitzvot was a very interesting connection. So we're gonna make that connection even more today, and hopefully that is an interesting, oh, well, I got one fan.
Oh,
Hopefully that is
you have 2 fans.
2 fans, wow.
This is one of my favorite
In
things,
a room
I'll
of
keep my
15,
mouth
2
shut.
fans.
I came across a
studied
Rashi
this
did,
before.
or a teaching he did this afternoon. Came across it, and I never caught up, it was on the theme of, the blind man in the dark
Yes.
lantern.
Yes, yeah,
So you seem to have
a theme.
a trend going.
Yeah,
Do
so
we have here? Do we have more?
I definitely don't have enough copies because I didn't expect this many people, so thank you all for being here, and, oh, there's an extra one, okay. Does anybody need one? Anybody not get one, or, you get one? You guys can get one?
I read ahead and ruin your presentation.
Do you want this? Do you want it? Yeah? Okay.
I learned
Yeah,
this
sure.
with,
You guys
learned
can-
this with Rabbi Rembam
Oh,
years
cool.
ago, and I will keep my mouth shut.
No, you can, I mean, I'm sure that he and I will say similar and also different things, so that's probably fine. So AJ was just commenting on the fact that I wrote the Taste of Torah this past week. Also, I'm the only TBA rabbi in LA right now, so anything that you received this past week having to do with Shabbat probably came from me. So I'm sorry, but I wrote the Taste of Torah, and there was a story that I used in that Taste of Torah about a blind man who lights the lamps for the town, and this idea that there's some kind of beauty and not necessarily using that light for yourself, but allowing others to be able to see. So AJ was just saying there's a nice connection there, which I had not thought about. But the reason that story is brought up is because in this past week's parsha, which we read this morning, the idea of the menorah and what is the menorah doing at the front of the tabernacle. So, okay, we're gonna jump right in. I'm gonna read all the different sources as opposed to calling on people to read so that we can make sure that that people on Zoom can hear. But we're in Numbers chapter 13, verse 17, and I'm gonna go until verse 21. So it says here, and I'm gonna read some in Hebrew, some in English. If you have the sheet in front of you, you'll see that I made sure to print these in color because I wanted you to see that there were words that are repeated in these two different narratives, right? One having to do with the spies, and the other one having to do with tzitzit, and different verbs are going to be used for seen in both places that are mirrored. Okay, so in Bamidbar Yud Gimel, it says Vaishlach otam Moshe. So Moshe sent them out latur et eretz Canaan. So, by the way, the word latur means to tour, literally. It doesn't actually mean to scout, which is what the word is that we use in colloquially when we're translating, and the word that you see here from Sefaria. But it actually means to tour. It's like the easiest word to learn in Hebrew because it means the same thing in English. So they were just supposed to tour the land. Now, if you've toured any land, right, if you've gone to, I don't know, Italy, and you've toured Italy, you're not necessarily there to scout out the land, right? You're not there to spy on anything. You're there to enjoy and to experience. And that's really what we call then scouts later on were there to do. They were just there to experience the land, to tour the land. Vayomer alehem, alu ze banegev alitem et hahar. Go up there into the Negev, sorry, there's a typo, and on into the hill country, and uritem et haaretz mahi, and you're gonna see what is this land. Right? What is it? What are you seeing there? So Re'item is you will see, right? And what that is getting at is less of this touring aspect and now more of the scouting aspect. So there's a reason for you to see, not just to experience, but now there's actually something to see, a reason for the seeing. Now I'm just gonna go straight into the English because the words that I want to point out are done for this piece of text. Are the people who dwell in it strong or weak, few or many, right? You have tasks when you go into this land and you're going to see what's there. What are you seeing? What are you experiencing? Is the country in which they dwell good or bad? Are the towns they live in open or fortified? Is the soil rich or poor, meaning good to plant in or not? Poor is probably not the right English word there. Is it wooded or not? And take pains to bring back some of the fruit of the land. So make sure to look around, see what you can see, who are the people, what do they have there? If we were to come in, which is what this is all getting at, what would be good for us, what would be difficult for us, and make sure that, it might take a little bit of work, but make sure that you bring back some fruit. Now it happened to be the season of the first ripe grapes. They went up and they scouted the land from the wilderness of Tzin to Rehov at Levo Hamat. Okay. So what is actually happening here? What are these tourists, what are these scouts doing in this land?
Oh, that's
Yeah.
the question.
Yeah, that is a question.
They're looking how they're gonna conquer it. They're trying
Okay.
to figure out why you gotta ask if the city fortified or not.
Okay, great. So one of the questions in here is very clear that there is an agenda to potentially conquer the land at some point, right? So the idea of, is it fortified or is it free, right? Is it swampland or is it built up? What else is happening? Yeah.
I guess they're just surveying the land to see what they can do with it.
Yeah, they're surveying the land to again, right, have this agenda of what could we do with this land. What does this remind you of? It's not a trick question. There's a lot of things this could remind you of.
I immediately thought of Thomas Jefferson sending out people to literally try to get to the Pacific.
Great, so Thomas Jefferson sending out people to get to the Pacific, or figure out a way to get to the Pacific? Others?
Buying property, investing.
Okay, great. A modern day example, buying property or investing in property and scouting out, right, that property to see if it's good to invest in. What else?
It seems like they're just seeing if that land is livable.
If the land is, right, but what does that remind you of, right? The land being livable. What else in our history can you think of where we've done this?
State of Israel.
Great, the state of Israel, right? That is obviously a part of our history that is told in many different ways as to how that scouting, how that touring happened. But yes, there was definitely a time in which people went into the land that we now call Israel and figured out what were the places that we could then come to and make our homeland. Columbus, anybody? Right, just like the general idea. None of these are wonderful stories, right? I'm not trying to say that like we should be so proud that we also did this back in our day in certain areas. But this is what people had to do when they, right, I'm thinking back to, obviously not 100% historically, but when we were kids watching the movie Pocahontas, right? And you see how they show up on the shores and they're all looking around to see what that land looks like and is there gold and is there not gold. Obviously not, as I mentioned before, not historically accurate to the actual story, just a Disney rendition. But that is, when you read through this, that you can imagine them like coming up in their boats and being all, you know, strong and whatnot and showing up to see what that land's gonna look like so they can then take it over.
Just
Yeah,
a point of reference.
yeah.
Almost none of us were kids when Pocahontas
Okay, good
came out.
I was a kid. When Pocahontas came out. I won't tell you how young I was, but I was a child. You all watched it with your children. Okay, thank you. That was a very important point of reference. I thought you were talking something like historic about Pocahontas. Okay, so.
I didn't understand the connection between, you were talking about Columbus and then you said Pocahontas and I'm like, wait a minute.
Oh, I'm just saying that when you think about stories that have been told about land being conquered
Okay.
or people coming to land.
You weren't thinking simultaneously.
No. I'll just give you another example. Yeah, thank
I
you.
was worried about your history class.
Yeah. I'm not that confused about my
The
history.
real question
Yeah.
is, why would Moses send people to do anything when God is going to provide, and then as a good organizer knows, you never ask the question unless you know the answer. So it's like anything else, you know, but I'm just like throwing that out just for food for thought.
Well, hold on one second. Let me just repeat it so people can hear. So Irvin mentioning, you know, first of all, the I guess meta question to ask is, why did we have to do this in the first place if God already knows, right? If God can already see in, God already knows, why send Moshe and then these tourists into the land to be able to do this for Moshe, for God, if the answer is already there? And why ask the question if you already know the answer? Alan, then.
Well, it's one of the reasons, this question has been asked before, and the rabbis say, well, that's why it says, shlach lecha, take for yourself.
Right. Well, send for yourself, yeah.
Send for yourself.
Yeah.
Send for yourself. In other words, yes, Liz, but if you feel more comfortable sending out the spies or sending out people to check it out, because some to hate, go ahead and do it. But it's not, because otherwise you could just say, shlach, and if it was a commandment directly from God that you had to do it, what is lecha doing there? So this is like God, according to one,
Right, so what Alan's pointing out is that it's the idea, we actually don't read, I didn't bring this verse for us to read, but this idea of shlach lecha, similar to lech lecha, right, is that you're doing it for yourself. You're not actually doing it for God, even if God is kind of the impetus behind doing the sending, you're doing it, Moshe in this case is doing it for Moshe's self. Sandra.
I was just gonna say, you need the people's buy-in.
Great.
The people on the ground are the ones who are going to be doing the conquering, doing the settling, doing whatever. You need their buy-in, and
Right.
this is how you get their buy-in. Well, that was the thought.
The hope, right. Right, so the hope would be that we would get the people's buy-in to really, on both sides, right, actually, the people's buy-in who were doing the touring, and then potentially even the people's, maybe it's not called buy-in on that side of things, but understanding of what might be coming towards them and how it could be either beneficial or at least not completely catastrophic. But for these scouts to know that they're part of the process, right? When we're teaching a class, we like our students to get to the same idea that we had for the lesson plan, because if they feel ownership over it, then there's a better chance that they're gonna get to it. Whereas if we just say, this is what you're gonna do, there's a better chance that they're not gonna end up doing what we expect them to. Did you want to
I
follow
was
up?
gonna say, and the people, not the people
Right.
when they come back, the whole Am Yisrael.
Great. So the whole nation, when they return, to feel like they had, even if they were not the exact ones, that they had some of their feelers, so to speak, in the process.
And some agency.
Some agency, exactly. That's a great word for this.
That didn't really happen.
It does not really happen, but that's a spoiler alert. Okay, so now we're gonna skip a few chapters ahead, and so that's one story. We're not getting into the depths of that story, but just so that you can kind of see the beginnings of that story, because that's where these words are first used. So latur and ureitem are the two words that we're gonna be focusing on when we get to this next passage, which is all about tzitzit. And when I start to read it, you're gonna know exactly the passage that I'm referring to, because we say it 3 times a day. Okay. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor. Daber al bnei Yisrael v'amarta alehem ve'asu lehem tzitzit. So God says to Moshe to say to the people, speak to bnei Yisrael, and you should say to them, put on tzitzit, or really make for them tzitzit. Make for themselves, right? They should make for themselves tzitzit. Now, just a fun question, I can't think of what the term is called. What are tzitzit?
Fringes.
But what are tzitzit?
They're wrapped around.
Right.
And then knotted in a particular way.
Okay, so they're not the tallis, right? The tallis, do I have a visual here? No. The tallis is it's okay. By the time you get it out, I'll be done with the sentence. The tallis is the garment itself. The tzitzit are the actual mitzvah, right? Think back in the day to garments that were worn. Most people were wearing tunics. And so most people had 4 cornered garments. There was not this need to create a tallis. You just put tzitzit on your garments. So when they said, make for yourself tzitzit, it wasn't like, oh, let me go get some fabric, let me get an atara, let me put this whole thing together. It was just, let me tie tzitzit on my garment. And that's going to be this reminder for mitzvot. So, al kanfei b'gedehem, I just gave that away, on the corners of your garments, of your clothes, literally. Ledorotam v'natu al tzitzit hakanaf b'til techelet. Okay, this is just telling you what and colors, etc. V'haya lachem letzitzit uritem oto. So, if you've ever heard Josh Rashosky talk about how he wears tzitzit, he wears a talit katan underneath his shirt, and he only has one little string that sticks out. Now you'll all notice that when you see Josh next. But it's because it says uritem oto. It doesn't say otam. It says you're only gonna see one of them. He can talk to you more about that. But the reason I have it highlighted here is because the scouts were told to ureitem also. Right? They were told to see the land, to see what was there, who were the people, what was going on, etc., etc. When we are talking about tzitzit being on our garments, you're supposed to have these tzitzit to see them, to see it, literally. Okay? Uzkartem ekol mitzvot Adonai va'asitem otam. So you're going to remember all of the mitzvot that God made for you. Velo taturu. Okay, what does lo taturu mean in this particular case? There's a lo before it, so do not.
Not follow your heart.
Okay, maybe follow. Remember that tour before meant to tour.
Yeah. Not go astray.
Okay, so then lo taturu don't scout out, right? Don't do anything that's going to like go deeply, basically. Acharei levavchem. So it's interesting because in the English here, it says, so that you do not follow your heart and eyes and your lustful urge, right? It's taking something that could be really beautiful, right, and seeing the tzitzit, and it's saying, I don't want you to follow urges that you might have. So when you see these tzitzit, hopefully it'll negate that, and you'll go towards the mitzvot and not the bad things you could possibly do. It's like a double negative in the most confusing of ways, right? Not written that way, but just conceptually. When you see the tzitzit, you're not supposed to follow the things that you might have thought about if you weren't wearing the tzitzit. Everybody with me? So the way that scouting or touring is being used here is that it's something you should not want to do, and that the tzitzit should be a reminder not to do it. And yet, when we have the scouting beforehand, it's supposed to be this thing that was really beautiful, at least for us to acquire land in such a way that we would know what we were coming into. So the word is being used in very opposite ways, but for the same kind of action. Any thoughts on that? Does everybody recognize this passage?
I do.
Okay.
Okay. What does zonim mean, the word itself?
Zonim. I mean, in like a zona is like, yeah, so that's what it means.
Okay.
Yeah. So something that would be, I mean, they're saying lustful here, but something
I
that
was gonna
would,
say, this is terrible translation,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
if you're looking literal.
well, it's just making it make more sense in English. If you read it in the Hebrew, like you would have to add in.
I have a thought to throw out.
Yeah.
Why God asked them to do that at this point, and that would be that he forecasted that they would see the giants and seal that, but they would have something to remind them that God's gonna take care of them. They didn't do it.
That's nice.
Just a
So maybe
thought.
to make sure that they weren't going to go against these urges that they might have that would go against the mitzvah that they were given. That's interesting. Yes, I do.
Sorry,
No.
it's rare that I see something that I read all the time and.
Yeah, that's why I thought this was so interesting too.
So the whole point of tzitzit, according to what we read every day.
Yeah.
Is to not have wanton sex, to not have with people that we shouldn't be having.
I know. I think that zonim is now used that way, but I think it really just means to not go against the mitzvot that you should remember by seeing the tzitzit. So if you read.
This is just a for example?
This is just, well, that's why I don't love the fact that they use the word lustful, but yes, I mean,
Right, because going after your heart and your eyes could be a good thing also.
Right, that's what I was, yeah, exactly,
But-
exactly. Well, and that's what they were being told to do in the land, right? So I think when we read the third paragraph of the Shema on a daily basis, and we read this, what we're thinking about is we should see the tzitzit that we wear, whether all the time or while we're praying, and we should be able to think about the fact that there are mitzvot that we should hold on to all the time during the day, no matter if we're really focused on them or not, by looking down and saying like, oh, I should behave differently. Now, I hope that worked, right? There are many people that wear tzitzit who still do things that we wouldn't want them to do, and there may be many people who don't wear tzitzit who do wonderful things in the world. So it's clearly not a foolproof method, but the idea here, when looking at it in the text itself, I think it is getting at this, like, you could be drawn to do things that you should not want to do, or definitely shouldn't do according to my mitzvot.
That you should put a stop. This is
Correct. Correct. But in the daily practice of reading this, I think it's more so just, you should be reminded that there are mitzvot that you should be following, and these are the signs that you should have to be that visual reminder.
I guess I read it all the time, I didn't
Yeah.
know how specific it was.
Yeah, Alan.
Well, there's another reason to wear tzitzit other than to make sure you don't have lustful thoughts.
No, not lustful thoughts, it's
Or
assuming
lustful actions,
lustful
prevent you
thoughts.
from
That's what I
doing
find
bad
so
things.
interesting, it's assuming
The-
you're gonna have lustful thoughts,
Right,
and it's saying, have lustful thoughts, that's fine. This is a reminder of when to follow those thoughts and when not to.
Yeah, but one of the primary reasons to wear tzitzit, at least in the rabbinic mind, is certainly going to be to zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim. And it's for that reason, for example, that, there was a discussion, we talked about it on Pesach. Why is it that we say this paragraph at night? Because if it's just tzitzit that we wear during the day, if that's the main focus, then there's no reason, this is Ben Zoma in there about what was going on, then there's no reason to be able to say that third paragraph of the Shema at night, if that's the primary focus. But because the focus is Yitziat Mitzrayim, which happens, you remember it, day and night, Kol Yemei Hayecha, the days and the nights.
I've never heard that tzitzit are connected to Yetziat Mitzrayim. But it's possible that it's connected to, like, that there's a midrash about that. It's very possible. But I think the general understanding of tzitzit is that it's connected to all mitzvot, of which that is definitely one of them, to remember Yetziat Mitzrayim. And so it's possible that, and that was kind of the point that I was making to Sandra, that there's definite reason to connect this to those lustful urges, especially when we're reading it opposite the spies and where we kind of are in our narrative of the Torah, but also to just on a daily basis to be able to recognize things like Yetziat Mitzrayim and all these other mitzvot that we wouldn't necessarily remember walking down the street to go to Glotmart, but then if you see tzitzit, right, although going through Glotmart, you might think about Yetziat Mitzrayim a little bit. But just this idea of the mitzvot that you should hold on to be able to do well in the world. Okay, I said that I didn't have enough material, and then I said that I was gonna rush through, and here we are. So I just wanna read two more things that we have on this sheet. I'm glad this was interesting for everybody. So Rashi at the bottom of the page, I'm just gonna read through it, and then I would love to hear your thoughts. The verb taturu has the same meaning in Numbers 13:25, which I just brought in the earlier use of it, but it's the same idea. It's the same spies story. The heart and the eyes are the spies of the body. They act as its agents for sinning. The eye see, the heart covets, and the body commits the sin. So this is getting back to what Sandra's saying, is that when you read these two stories together, it's easy to connect these two moments, one being a passage we know very well and one being a story that we know pretty well, that this idea of scouting could be that we are making sure not to do that scouting all the time, and that we should have these visual reminders that it's very easy and very possible for us, because we're human beings, to, and really just animals in general, right, to do that, but to be able to hold ourselves to mitzvot, which of course we can list tons of mitzvot that go against having those kinds of thoughts and urges. And as Sandra was saying, like, it's not bad to have them. It's just there needs to be a time and a place and a reason and a person and all those kinds of things to act on them, right? But there's no problem with them, just like there's no problem touring a land, but there might be if you're going to come and conquer it, right? There might be reason behind your actions that needs to be kind of tamed. Yeah.
So, and I told you I'd raise my hand.
That's great. Yeah.
So a tour, to go out and tour, to go out looking for it.
Yeah.
To go out, literally to go out looking for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So that's perhaps even a better translation.
Totally, and I think in that case, it's a great thing for the scouts, right? I mean, not so great for the people who were scouted, I guess. But for us, on this side of things, it was great that we went into a land to scout it out because we knew what we were up against. But right, the way that Rashi is explaining it is that there is something about a human being doing that kind of scouting that doesn't feel like the right way to go about. Right, exactly, yeah.
Are they is God asking them to act logically, or just?
Who's the they?
God, or is, Moshe?
Sorry, I'm just not getting all the pronouns.
The scouts being asked to act logically, or they just not to act on their heart and emotions?
Yeah, because, right, yes, it's a really good
It doesn't say
question.
them explicitly to say, act logically, act something that makes sense, it's just don't act on your emotions, or.
Right, so these are two very different passages and moments in this parsha, but yeah, in the scout story, everything is very logical, right? Because it's all for this moment of then being able to take over the land and know what's in it. When we get to the passage that's later on in chapter 15, when we get to this idea of wearing tzitzit, it has less to do with logic and more to do with emotions. So it's using the same words, but in two very different ways, yeah.
I think there's a different context that I see it in.
Yeah.
These are slaves. They gotta conquer anything. The tzitzit gives them the idea of reminding them that God promised that you're gonna have this land there. That's what the purpose of it is. Not
So
that
maybe
they're gonna
because
go
they
rape-
still have
Not
a
that a bunch of spies going on tours, they're gonna go molest the people who commit crimes in the area. They're just there to observe because they probably didn't think they would ever do it. Moshe screwed up and said, go see it, instead of letting a bunch of spies take fortified cities that never fought anything without God's help. And they weren't ready, and they died out till the next generation comes. So that's my whole thesis.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
possible that because they have that slave mentality, they need more reminders and
Exactly.
more like bumpers in a bowling alley to keep themselves doing what they need to be doing as now members of a people who have rules and laws and mitzvot, as we would call it.
I speak to Moshe every week. You know, that's what it is.
Okay, I want to read one more.
God, I don't speak to. I leave that to you.
Wait, hold on. I want to read one more passage, and then if there are a few more comments, we can take them before we finish. So the last passage on the second side. If you want to read the Sefer Chinuch, you're more than welcome to. But I'm going to read this modern piece from 2006. Well, 2006 has come up a lot today. So 2006 by Alan Cook, and he says, "There's a mosquito in my face." Okay. It seems that this Sidra is all about seeing, what we choose to see and what we ignore. Caleb and Yehoshua, we didn't talk about them, but they come after this, or as part of really this scout's story, saw the beauty of the land. The remaining spies could see only obstacles that stood in the way of the Israelites taking possession of the land. And the Israelites themselves, who heard the spies' reports, were blinded by their fear of the unknown, rather than being open to the opportunities that would be afforded to them as they enjoyed freedom in the land that had been promised to their ancestors. So similar to what Irvin was saying. By contrast, the tzitzit require us to have our eyes open to appreciate them, and in so doing, we are reminded of God's mitzvot and of the kindness that God showed to us in redeeming us from Egypt. There you go, Alan. We can go through our lives with blinders before our eyes, refusing to bear witness to God's graciousness towards us. Or we can open eyes that have previously been blind and proclaim, Ashreinu, that's never happened to me before, that's very funny. Ashreinu, how greatly have we been blessed. So that's bringing together these two different pieces here in a kind of a modern take, a modern read on this. And it's nice that it brought in your commentaries as well, to have this idea that we need to not only have reminders that there are good things coming to us or things that we could avail ourselves of if we were able to see everything, but that there are also things that we need to open our eyes to that are not so great as reminders for ways that we can heal and ways that we can make things better and ways that we can be open to that kind of change. So I thought this was a very interesting connector piece to bring at the end of this, and I'll hear what Alan has to say, and then we can move on.
Right. The citation that you gave about tzitzit, and which is the third paragraph of the Shema, didn't include the final verse of the Shema, which specifically deals with Yetziat Mitzrayim. It says, Ani Hashem Elohim Eshavtei Mitzrayim.
Right.
And so, and that's why that this rabbinically is viewed as this is this is to remind us of Yetziat Mitzrayim each and every day, which is why we say it in the morning and at night.
Right, I've just never heard that tzitzit specifically, like the fringes were connected to Yetziat Mitzrayim as a reminder.
Yeah.
I obviously know that the
Yeah,
paragraph
well,
itself has Yetziat Mitzrayim
Right,
in
no,
it.
and
But the idea of the reminder, I think, in general, in enabling us to have a visual reminder, which some of us need and some of us don't need. But if you are a visual learner, a visual person, having some kind of reminder that even if you're not going to say, oh, right, these tzitzit, what are the 613 mitzvot again, right? You have this idea of somehow being connected to a lifestyle of mitzvot, of which remembering the fact that we were once slaves and that we were then redeemed should be a mindset for us to be able to walk in the world.
I'm thinking more about the actual third paragraph itself and what it means, rather than just tzitzit, because everyone thinks that tzitzit, that whole paragraph, the primary focus of it is tzitzit. But in the rabbinic mind, no, the primary purpose of the paragraph is Yetziat Mitzrayim.
I was just, this is gonna take us too far afield, but every time that the Torah or the Tanakh talks about something sexual explicitly or relatively explicitly, desire, shirim, anything, the rabbis always make it about something else.
That is true. And on that note, we are going to bench. Joey, you want to lead us?
Okay.
We're gonna bench. We'll do Shir Hamalot and the Zimun out loud, and then we'll let people bench by themselves, and then we will turn to Mari in just a few moments.
Page 47. Shir Hamalot B'Shu Adonai Yeshivat Tzionayim Necholim Azim Aleitov Minu Ushoninu Rina Azimru Adonai Adonai Lasodimele Kiti Adonai Lasodimanu Ainu Tzezeim Shu Adonai Yeshitinu Kavidim V'Neged Pazim Very nice, Halo Gelek Uvago No Semekshem Right of our rest. The rest only you shall call me Shalom. Call me Shalom. Subo. Kainu Baruch Baruch Shemo. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Hazan et Haolam Kulo B'Tuvo V'Chein B'Chesed U'Rachamim. U'Noten Lechem L'Chol Basar Ki V'Olam Hazo U'Tuvo HaGadol Tamid Lo Chasar Lanu Ve'Echsar Lanu Ma'azon Le'olam Va'ed Ba'Bur Shemo HaGadol He was on Pardes L'Kol U'Mitiv L'Kol U'Mitiv Ma'azon Le'Chol Briotav Asher Bara Baruch Atah Adonai Hazan
Yeshakov to Joey. We are going to continue with Mari on page 264 in the Lev Shalem. And if you're able to do so, please rise. והוא רחום יכפר עוון ולא ישחית והרבה לשכיב ולכל חמתו אדוני הושיע המלך יעננו ויום קורנו ברכו את אדוני המבורך ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ומעביר יום ומביא לילה ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה אדוני צבאות שמו אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני המעריב הרבים. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה בני ישראל לכהנו שירה ושמחה רבה ואמרו כולם לכבוד מלכותך ראו בניך בוקרים לפני משה זה אלי אנו ואמרו ונאמר כיפת אדוני את יעקב וגדול mi chazak mimenu baruch ata Adonai gal Yisrael. Ushmor tzeitzenu voinu l'chaim u'shalom etave ad olam. Baruch ata Adonai shomer amo Yisrael la'ad. Baruch Adonai. Minha malchut שלך היא ולמעט תמלך בכבוד כי לנו מלך אלה אתה ברוך אתה אדוני המלך בכבודו תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ועל כל מעשיו יתגדל ויתקדש שמרבה ועמד בברכותי במלך מלכותי וחיי כל יום נכון וחיי בכל בית ישראל ועד עליו זמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתשמע ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלש ונקודשה בריחו לעילם ינקוב ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. What's for Amidah is found on page 270. You're not yet finished, Jeremy, down, please continue at your own pace. Hasikash on page 279. Yitkada v'kadash merabah, ve'almad yivrach yoter mechlochotei v'chayechon v'chonchei v'chobet Yisrael, v'alav mizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehish merabah, ve'alav me'amaya. Yitbarach v'yishabach v'yitbar v'yishama v'yinaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalel, shmei kodesha b'rechu, le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tishbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran ve'alma v'imru amen. V'ino mananai Eloheinu Eloheinu ma'aseh yodenu kona Eloheinu ma'aseh yodenu kona Eloheinu. Yikran yiveineu imon achim betzarach chatzeu v'achvad yorachem imasvihu v'yari v'shuhati orachem imasvihu v'yari v'shuhati. Turn back to page 216. ואתה קדוש ושבתי לו אישה בחר הזה על זה ואמר קדוש 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 עולם צבאות מלך הארץ כבודו. ותישאני רוח ושמע אחרי קורש גדול ברוך אדוני במקומו. אדוני ימלוך לעולם.
תיתנו יעקב חסד ואברהם אשר נשבעת אבינו מקדם.
ויפתחו בך ידי שמך כי לא זאת דרשך אדוני חפץ למען צדקו יגדיל תורה וידיר. יתגדל ויתקדש מרבה ועלמד יברח יוצא וימליך מלכותי וחייכון ומכון וחיי לכל בית ישראל ועד אליו זמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יתברך וישבח וישפר וישמע וינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשה בריחו לעילה מכל ברחתה ושירתה תשפחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. תתקבל כל דהון ובת ההון בכל ישראל כל דהון והון וישמעיה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום הרב שמעיה וחיים עלינו בכל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום ירומם ויעשה שלום עלינו בכל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עלינו לשבח אדוני. כתוב בתורתך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. Mourner's Kaddish, page 282. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה ועלמד יברח יוצא וימליך מלכותי וחייכון וינומכון וחיי לכל בית ישראל ועגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה ורב לעולם לעולם היה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קדושה בריחו לעילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום הרבה משמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום ירומם והוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו amen. All right on time for Havdalah. Oh, it's a very sticky bottle. Really gross. Okay. Awesome.
We have a water.
When you were squatting earlier, I thought something was bugging you. See what you did there?
There was a mosquito that I killed. It's Shabbat, it's fine. No, don't.
Yeah. That's me. It's bugging you.
Isn't there a whole thing?
is that a-
Yeah,
it was a
yeah, thank
There's a
you.
napkin underneath.
Yeah, thank you. Himnei Yeshuati, Eftach v'lo echad, Ki yozim bezimrat yad, Adonai v'yehi li l'yeshua, U'shavtem mayim v'sasot, Mi'marnei ha'yeshua, L'Adonai ha'yeshua, Adonai Tzevaot, Imanu, Miskav lanu, Elohei Avos Elah, Adonai Tzevaot, Ashrei Adam Boteach Ba'av, Adonai Hoshia, Hamelech Yameinu V'Yomoreinu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei minei v'samim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei mirei ha'esh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Hamavdil ben kodesh lechol, ben or lechoshech, ben Yisrael le'amim, ben yom hashvi'i l'sheshet yamei hamaseh. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamavdil ben kodesh lechol. Hamavdil ben kodesh lechol, Chatoteinu yimchol, Zareinu v'chaspeinu yarvei bekachol, Ha'kochavim b'layla. Zareinu v'chaspeinu yarvei bekachol, Ha'kochavim b'layla. Shavua tov, 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 Shavua tov. Eliyahu hanavi, Eliyahu hatishmi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu adinati, b'mira v'yameinu, yavo eleinu, im Mashiach ben David, im Mashiach ben David. I'm going to make two announcements very quickly. Starting Tuesday, Rick Muller is teaching a class on how to read Torah. For those of you who have not ever learned how to read Torah or are interested in learning with a master teacher, he is fabulous. And I think he'll continue to teach beyond Torah if there's enough of a class that wants to continue beyond Torah. But he's definitely going to teach the trope system for Torah first. Next Sunday, which is also Father's Day, I recognize that, and happy Father's Day to all those who are fathers. We are having a conversation with Rabbi Dr. Michael Berenbaum. When we got back from the Balkans, we wanted to be able to open up some of that experience to the rest of the community. And so he's going to be talking to us specifically about the Holocaust narrative between the different places that we went to, which is Bulgaria and Northern Macedonia. And he's also going to be speaking specifically to the Holocaust Museum that he helped start in Northern Macedonia. Check out the list of things that are going on in June. There is so many. And there's a lot that's happening just next Sunday, or 2 Sundays from now. There were 3 events on that one Sunday, the 25th. So please take a look at the email that went out, and we hope to see you at many events between now and then.
The announcement online was not clear. Is Michael's lecture only in person or
No.
only on Zoom or what? Is it in?
It's both. So it is in person and also on
And
Zoom.
Rick Muller's class, is that both?
It's in person only.
It's in person only.
Yeah.
What time is the class?
Tuesday, I think it's at 7:30, so that people can go to Minha.
I thought so, I thought it was at 6. It was initially
It's
announced
in
at
the
6.
email. I don't know.
So 6.
Yeah.
I think,
yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
It's either right
it's 6.
before Minion or right after Minion, but not during Minion. Yeah.
Any chance of getting that Zoom as well?
No, because he wants to teach in person. Yeah. Shabbat Tov, everyone.
Shavuot
See
Tov.
you all soon. Thanks
Oh.
for being here today. It was a nice crowd.
Yes.
Is that yours or?
No.
Went around the, Jesus be reminders of all the famous, I saw that song, always something there to remind you.
That's right.
That song?
I do love that song, yeah. Yeah. All right.
More red shots.
Yes.
Oh, me tomorrow, yes, I will be.
Okay.
Yes, I will.
I thought we could,
Yeah.
attention,
Yeah.
because I know you always leave more time for what's going on.
No, that was great. There was no topic on how fast you went. That was great.
No,
Yeah.
it's really.
It was also just a short Torah reading, so it just went faster. Yeah.
But what you do, it is, the connection is like, with that initially.
Yeah.
Then at least remind you of all the rituals. So that is just like, the whole thing about Uncle Horace. Sometimes, oh, I can't do this, I can't be trained.
Yeah, I know you, that's, you were
Yeah, sure.
very easy guest,
But
Diane.
it is,
Good, all right.
that
We
is
take care.
certainly, and it says that there, because you went in to remind you to observe all humanity.
Oh, yeah, you
The
too.
catch-all of everything.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna be.
And so, yes, that's great, you've been doing all sorts of that, not just thinking, about.
Oh, 7.
But I never.
The word zoning, yeah. Yeah.
Every time you.
I think that the idea of
easier.
zone, like a zona, rather than a
Yeah.
harlot or a
So I figured it could be
whore
more
today's day.
substantial.
Right,
You know,
I think we've
great
created,
more pressure.
we've used that word to mean that, but I think that back in the day, it just meant lustful, yeah.
Also,
I mean, it wasn't
deep
hard,
impression.
but I think it
Right,
was.
right, right.
Well, you know, if I use the time better.
But we have so many rules around it,
Yeah.
which is good and positive. I mean, some of them I think obviously come from different culture and.
Yeah, sure.
But, I just find like where it goes, like where we find that very interesting.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And also, every time the rabbi is like, yeah.
You know, I got like 5 ideas that I
Yeah,
couldn't
yeah.
write
Which
down,
is
so the most
interesting
important one,
that we
I
evolved
gotta raise
from a
800
place
pounds.
and a
I
culture.
figured out how to do it, but
Talked
now I
about
can't do
it,
it.
Yeah.
put it in there explicitly.
Right.
To a time and a place and a
You're
culture
welcome.
where we
No,
have
we
to
won't.
speak in metaphor. when
Right.
we speak
Problem is I got,
Right,
that
right.
was
Yeah,
fun,
for sure.
but nothing else
For
to
sure,
do. Now I
for
got
sure.
2 huge fights, and we're trying to
I'm
take
gonna
it
take
into
this,
law.
Yeah.
smoked whitefish.
Oh, whitefish.
I love smoked whitefish, and I'm not.
I'm so glad.
They're gonna
Yeah,
just
but
throw it out.
I do wanna add.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm gonna start walking because
Yeah.
I wanna get home.
I have